What makes a story enjoyable to read? Well, it needs an interesting plot and characters that we can relate to and care about. Problems and challenges that these characters have to overcome. Interesting and exciting settings. Most importantly though, it must be written so that the reader feels part of the experience. And how is this done? By showing, not telling. Which of these descriptions do you prefer? After his mother turned out the lights, Kevin felt scared. After his mother turned out the lights, Kevin's room was plunged into darkness. He slid deeper beneath the covers of his bed and gripped the sheets tightly. Peeking out, he saw shadows dancing across the bedroom wall. His breathing quickened and his body tensed. In this one, I've told you he is scared. In this one, I haven't. I've let you work it out by giving you some clues to piece it together. Mad Dog McGraw became angry. Mad Dog McGraw's face turned red and his eyes narrowed into slits. His hands formed into fists and he slammed them down onto the table, sending the glasses crashing to the floor. He leaned forward, gritting his teeth together fiercely. The cabin boy shrank back in fear, knowing that McGraw's volcanic temper was about to erupt. I've done the same here. In this first one, I've told you exactly how McGraw was feeling. But in this one, I've not actually told you. I've implied it. There's more detail here, and this helps you to picture the scene in your head. This, in turn, makes you feel like you're sat next to the cabin boy, watching it all happen. As she climbed the mountain, Tina felt cold. As she climbed the mountain, Tina's feet were blocks of ice and she longed to be back in the cabin beside the log fire. She removed her saturated gloves. Her fingertips were turning white and numb, so she rubbed her hands together vigorously in an attempt to generate some warmth. The wind howled, biting through her multiple layers of clothing and seeping into her bones. This one makes it clear that Tina is cold, but this one gets us more immersed in the story. It's like we're stuck on the mountain, feeling just as cold as Tina. So when we show our readers what is happening, we are giving them clues to come up with their own conclusions. Something we all like to do. Our brains enjoy solving puzzles. Our brains like to deduce, infer, and predict. Here are 3 tips for you to use that will help you to show more in your descriptions. Tip 1. Describe using sensory details. In other words, describe what the characters would see, hear, smell, taste, and touch. This helps the reader to experience the story. The room was messy. The room was filled with the musty smell of unwashed laundry, and I could see piles of clothes and books scattered around. The sound of a ticking clock was drowned out by the buzzing of flies circling overhead. Tip 2. Use action to reveal how a character is feeling. Frank was afraid of flying. Frank's hands gripped the armrests and his eyes darted around the cabin, scanning the faces of the other passengers for any sign of reassurance. Despite the Arctic air conditioning, beads of sweat had formed on his forehead. The sound of the engines revving up caused his whole body to tense, and his breathing became shallow and rapid. As the plane began to move down the runway, Frank's eyes squeezed shut, and his lips moved silently, mouthing a silent prayer. Tip 3. Use dialogue. Mrs. Taylor was scared of spiders. "Get that thing away from me!" Mrs. Taylor yelled, pointing at the spider crawling up the wall. The eight-legged creature seemed oblivious to her distress and continued its slow, relentless climb towards the ceiling.
Instead of telling your readers the story, show them it. It will make them feel like they're right there with your characters. Take your storytelling skills to the next level and describe what is happening using sensory details. What do the characters see, hear, smell, taste, and touch? Use action. And use dialogue to reveal how your characters are feeling.